Hi guys, Josh here. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma just released for Nintendo Switch, Switch 2, and Steam, and in this video I'll be sharing with you my thoughts on the game so you know if this new farming sim RPG is for you or not. Thanks to Marvelous who sent me review keys for the game. I've been playing it for about 80 hours now. Don't worry, I won't go into story spoilers or anything, and as always, I will put all the timestamps if you're looking to know about something in particular. Most of my time with this game was spent on the Nintendo Switch, but I also tried it on the Switch 2 and PC. Any footage that you see with Subaru, the male protagonist, is from the Switch version, and if you see Kaguya, the female protagonist, that is the PC version. I played it on Switch 2 after having edited most of this video already, so the only Switch 2 footage will be when I'm specifically talking about that version. If you find this video helpful at any point, leave a like to let me know and let's get into it. If you are new to Rune Factory, this series combines farming sim and action RPG elements with an emphasis on the combat and story. Rune Factory 1 through 5 are the mainline entries. Throughout the years, we also got a few spin-offs such as Frontier, Tides of Destiny, and now Guardians of Azuma. The main unique features here are that everything is taking place in the eastern land of Azuma, inspired by traditional Japan, and we get to build 4 villages, one representing each season. So I think it's good to go into this game with the mindset that yes, it is Rune Factory, but it doesn't necessarily follow all the same exact formulas as previous games. It is trying new things, and we still have Rune Factory 6 to look forward to. Even though some things are different in true Rune Factory fashion, we have preset protagonists suffering from amnesia, and here you can choose between Subaru and Kaguya. And yes, you can change their name if you'd like. You wake up in the Spring Village and learn how most of Azuma got destroyed by an event called the Celestial Collapse about 50 years ago. You will help with rebuilding the 4 seasonal villages, befriend their villagers and gods along the way, and without going into spoilers, the story did a great job at keeping me immersed for the 50 or so hours that it took me to complete. Most of the story-related dialogue, as well as the romance events, are voiced over.
Hey, I'm not done talking yet!
The cutscenes are more dynamic than what we're used to with Rune Factory, with a greater number of unique animations, facial expressions, and all of these improvements together make it more engaging than just reading through long conversations with character portraits.
I knew it. The gods must have sent you to us for a reason. I barely did anything.
The first few hours especially are quite narrative driven, and even though it was interesting, I was craving for more gameplay, but then things opened up eventually, and I found the balance pretty good for the rest of the game. If you have played previous Rune Factory games, especially 5, you will hear some fun references, for example with Hina, who's returning from that game. Some of the terms might click a bit easier, but overall it is a standalone story that newcomers will be able to enjoy as well. We will dive into the characters and relationships later in the video, but for now I will say that I really enjoyed the increased production value with the story and cutscenes. Also, you can definitely feel the Japanese inspiration from the outfits to the music, the culture, the environments of course, and it really transports you into that world of Azuma. But this world needs our help, so let's talk about the villages that we'll rebuild. Each of the 4 villages is a combination of pre-built areas that you can't change. Those were all designed by the developers. And that's where you'll find most NPCs and unique buildings. And then there are the development zones, and that's where you can freely farm, decorate, and build. Right away, they're avoiding one big issue that a lot of games with town building have, which is flat, empty villages. In this game, even if you don't like decorating or you're not too good at it, things still look great by default. Each village feels truly unique, and visually they're all vastly superior to Rigbart from Rune Factory 5. Before you do too much decorating though, the first thing you'll be doing in these development zones is farming, which has been simplified. With the help of your adorable companion Woolby, you craft these fields, and it's also with him that you can make paths, hills, waterways. So just place those fields and then you can plant seeds and water them. You don't have to switch between different tools, and in fact, all of these tasks can be done either with your character in third-person mode or through this very practical overhead view. Unlike Rune Factory 3, 4, and 5, there is no soil quality or any advanced stats to keep up with. It's just a matter of watering and waiting for a few days. You do get a bigger yield if you plant a crop in the village that fits the season, and you can increase the level of your seeds by cutting them with the flame sword, but overall, farming is much simpler than it used to be. Speaking of that flame sword, it is one of the sacred treasures new to Azuma, and most of these act as both tools and weapons. So there's a parasol for watering large areas, a fan for harvesting multiple crops at once, a drum to make them grow faster, and all of these treasures are so satisfying to use, but you most likely won't be spending too much time farming by yourself. Very early on, villagers start moving in, and you can assign them to jobs like logging, mining, fishing, shopkeeping, ranching, or farming. They will do everything from planting to harvesting. They'll even put items in the shipping shed for you. So you'll just have to keep an eye on that shed if you want to use some of the veggies for yourself. The whole thing is fairly automated, and honestly, it works. Just like they managed to give us customization without having to deal with empty flat villages, they also avoided a big problem that many farming sims that give you multiple farms have, where you often end up having to visit all of them every day, which gets tedious and overwhelming. In Azuma, you can fast travel very easily between the various areas, but unless you have way more fields than your farmers can handle, they're actually quite self-reliant and you don't have to worry about going to all of the villages every day. They will even generate a lot of income for you, not only by selling the crops, but also from running the shops. You just have to make sure you build enough houses for everyone, but the village management is pretty surface level. In the end, it's very relaxing, you can go where you want, when you want, and do things at your own pace. In each village, there's a shrine that serves as a house with storage, a place to sleep and to cook, but keep in mind that there is nothing to customize here. Also, there are a few, like 3 or 4 outfits to unlock throughout the game, but there's nearly not as many as in Rune Factory 5 unless you purchase DLC. While you don't have any personal space to customize, you do of course have the villages. There are tons of decor items, buildings, trees and paths that unlock throughout the game. Also, time stops while you're decorating and everything just works very nicely thanks to the overhead view. It doesn't feel restrictive like in Pioneers of Olive Town, so you can put paths under furniture or buildings, and each square of the grid can be divided into 4 smaller squares, giving you more freedom when placing smaller objects, and overall, it is a pretty good decorating system. The only thing that annoys me when it comes to the fields, farmers will plant seeds randomly, so you could make one very beautiful garden for your tomatoes, another one just for turnips, but your villagers are eventually just going to mess it up and plant whatever they want. I would have loved if there was a setting to give us a bit more control as to what they would plant, but in the end, you will still get all of the crops you need, and decorating in this game is not just for aesthetics, as each thing you place will either increase the stats of your character or the productivity of your villagers, so there is an incentive to do it. As you reach certain stats and milestones with a village, it will level up, unlocking new development zones, items, and shops. Some of these shops will be pre-built and owned by unique NPCs, so don't worry, there are still unique villagers outside of the romanceable characters, and other shops you will place by yourself, and assign to them the more generic villagers. So there are izakayas and tea houses for cooking, carpenters for decor items and buildings, blacksmiths for weapons, and a few others like a bathhouse to replenish your HP and RP. This is a small nitpick, but I found that there were so many shops that ended up selling the same products, or items I never really had to buy, and I would have loved to see more variety, like a store to buy outfits, other than the Nintendo eShop. When you cook or craft at these stores, it's very simple. You provide the materials and money to the merchant, and they do it for you. You do need to have learned the recipe first, but there is no required level like in previous games, nor does it consume RP. I will address the difficulty later, it does need its own section, but crafting whatever you want is easy. Something else you can do in these villages is participating in festivals and contests. Festivals are few and far between, and they're mostly relationship-based, where you invite a partner and get to know them through a cutscene. Contests are the more active events, and for the first time here, you actually get to choose when they happen. It lets you schedule up to 1 per week if you want. There are 4 slightly different fishing contests, 3 slightly different cooking contests, and 1 harvest contest. I love the idea, I was really excited at first, I did each of them once, but I managed to win them all on the first try, and the rewards didn't feel worth it. It was still a good opportunity to interact with all of the characters and to do something different, but I don't think I should be able to win a harvest festival with something like a level 4 turnip. I don't remember what I gave exactly, but I always had way more points than other contestants without even trying. For fishing contests, the goal is either to catch the most fish, the biggest one, or as many squids as possible. You have most of the day to do so, and you can keep track of everybody's score on the screen, which is very useful. The fishing mechanic is simple. You aim to cast your rod in front of a fish. When it bites, you just press one button to reel, and that's it. What you catch can vary based on the place and time of day, but filling up my encyclopedia with all of the fish was faster than expected, as there's no fish that is really that rare or difficult to find. With all of these activities you'll be doing throughout the day, plus exploring the world and dungeons, which we will talk about next, you might be curious to know how is the pacing. Since time stops when you decorate, that is not an issue if it's something that usually stresses you out. Otherwise, 1 hour in game equals to 1 minute and a half in real life. Past midnight, your character starts losing HP automatically, so ideally you want to go to bed before that. So from 6 AM to midnight, that makes one day 27 minutes. Shorter than what we had in Rune Factory 5, which I think is a good thing. I always had more than enough time to do everything I wanted to do, but still on most days I ended up going to bed pretty late, and there was a good balance where I felt productive but never overwhelmed. As always, there is a calendar with 4 seasons, 30 days each, but they don't really matter since each area is forever tied to a specific season. So it's always spring in the spring village, always winter in the winter village, and even outside of the villages, the environments never change. A few changes here and there would have been appreciated, but knowing that it is a spin-off, this different direction didn't bother me too much. I just found a bit silly the fact that the calendar was using the 4 seasons in the first place. Of course, you need months or something to keep track of the birthdays and events, but in terms of world building, if the weather patterns where you live are the same all year round, it will be summer no matter what in the summer village, so why does winter exist on their calendar? It's not really a big deal, but unless it's explained in the story and I missed it, it's a bit strange and I feel like it could have been so easily avoided simply by making up names for 4 fictional months instead of using the names of the seasons. I'm not too bothered by it though, I just found it a bit interesting or confusing at first, but since they did manage to make beautiful regions to explore surrounding each of these villages that capture really well the essence of each season, it's almost like you can go through all of them in a day. Again, visually it is a vast improvement from Rune Factory 5, and the exploration itself is also more enjoyable. The world is packed with these frog statues teaching you recipes, treasure chests, blighted areas to heal with your sacred treasures, and even a few unique side quests and challenges. Especially when you enter an area for the very first time, it feels so rewarding to do everything. The only problem I have, maybe it's just me, but I wish all of these things didn't show up on the map. On one hand, yes, it's exciting, there is this dopamine release when you're getting all of these items, you're checking things off the minimap, but you don't truly discover much by yourself. I would have loved to, let's say, come back to revisit an area later, find a hidden corner I had not seen before, and then in it, a chest with the recipe for a dish I was looking for. But with a few exceptions of places you will have to come back to with certain sacred treasures, you can find everything the first time you get somewhere, making it so there's not too much of an incentive to revisit places you've already been to, or to spend a lot of time exploring them. Luckily, even if you never go back somewhere, there are still lots of places to explore for the first time. If you remember Rune Factory Tides of Destiny, where you went from one island to the next with your golem Ymir, there is a very similar mechanic here, but you're riding a dragon in the sky, flying from one floating island to the next. A lot of these islands contain dungeons for the story, others have some resources, monsters, fishing spots, and I think that these small islands are a nice change from the big areas surrounding the villages. In the skies, there are also very few moments that reminded me of the giant battles we did in Tides of Destiny. I won't say anymore, but I would have loved more of those. Now that I think of it, these two titles have quite a lot in common: the islands, the two protagonists that both play a part in the story, the farming that is a bit more hands-off. I think it is safe to say they took some inspiration from that game, but overall, they do have more differences than similarities. No matter what, it is still Rune Factory we're talking about, so you can expect a lot of combat. It has changed quite a bit with this spin-off, but like everything so far, it looks and feels great. The animations are cool, it's very smooth, and it just feels enjoyable. For the weapon types, we have short swords, long swords, dual blades, and two new ones, bows and talismans, which are long-range weapons. If you think that is not a lot, there is more because you can also fight using the sacred treasures. Each one is linked to an element, so you can send tornadoes with your fan, splash enemies with your parasol, or send them flying with your drum, which will heal you at the same time. As you use a specific weapon type or sacred treasure, you gain experience points to spend in their respective skill tree, where you can increase your stats and unlock new combos or special attacks. There are also skill trees for cooking, construction, social activities, and a few more that will give you little perks. This is very different from your typical Rune Factory leveling system, as you can choose how to spend your experience points, but in the end, you will still be able to get everything in all of those trees. Something else that is new, as you fight, you now have these spirit bars that fill up, and they are used for powerful special attacks to do with the sacred treasures. On top of that spirit bar, we still have RP, but they made some changes there as well, where regular weapons do not consume RP anymore. Only the sacred treasures do, making combat easier. Even though it is easier, they did manage to make things more interesting with new mechanics. For example, now if you dodge at the right time, you enter this slow motion mode, during which the enemies are more vulnerable, you can deal a lot of damage, and if you do that to bosses, you can fill up this bar and stun them for a short period of time. You will also notice how each boss has weaknesses that can be discovered, and that encourages you to play around with the different weapon types and secret treasures. I did find the combat very enjoyable, satisfying, a bit mindless. However, sometimes I felt like I was playing Dynasty Warriors, just mashing one button and easily destroying everything in my way, but it was still fun. This brings me to the difficulty. Like in Rune Factory 5, we have 3 difficulty levels. They're called Story, Balanced, and Hard. I played through the whole thing on Hard mode, but except for a few bosses I had to retry near the end, it was not hard. If you just want to experience something that feels good and is a bit mindless, you'll be fine. But if you want a challenge, you might be disappointed. For me, what annoyed me the most is, for example, monsters can inflict status effects like poison or paralysis, but these never last more than a few seconds, so there's no need to prepare potions to recover or equipment to prevent these status effects. Like I said earlier, you also can't miss a recipe or an item since everything appears on the map. All of the crafting materials are gained easily, villagers make money for you. So whenever monsters start getting a bit strong, you can go to the blacksmith, realize that you still have the same weapon from 2 or 3 dungeons ago, craft the latest one right away, and keep going. You can increase the level of your equipment. You can also add magatamas, these gems with extra stats, but that doesn't do anything too noticeable. And if you pass out, the only penalty is losing 10 experience points, which is basically nothing. It is a shame because the combat is fun. We have all of these mechanics like elements, status effects, equipment upgrades, but in most cases, none of it feels like it matters. You also have all of the decor and buildings in the villages that increase your stats, which is an amazing idea, but there was never a point where I thought, oh, this monster is too strong, let me see if there's a building that would give me an advantage. I just put whatever looked good, and I was always more than strong enough. I miss how in older Rune Factory games, there was always a difficulty spike between each dungeon. You had to get the recipes to make better equipment, grind your crafting and forging levels, find the ingredients, prepare the correct drinks and food so you don't get paralyzed or poisoned all the time. But in Azuma, you can just keep going without having to think of anything. It is a mindless, I suppose more cozy or relaxing kind of fun, more than a challenging one. Let's talk quickly about the dungeons. They are more interesting than the ones from Rune Factory 5. The atmosphere in them is on point, the environment, the music. Some have light, and I mean very light puzzle or platforming elements, but still, you can clear each one within a day, maybe 2 days. And I wish there was a bit more friction or obstacles to overcome along the way. Don't get me wrong, the main story is fairly long, there's lots of different dungeons. It will take you 40 to 50 hours to complete them, but it will feel like a breeze. While we're in the dungeons, I want to address wrenching very quickly. So yes, like in previous games, you can befriend most monsters and even the bosses. They can fight alongside you, and if you have villagers assigned to your barns, they will pick up products from these monsters automatically. You won't be doing too much wrenching by yourself, but it is still fun trying to befriend all the different monsters, and they do look good. There's a mix of traditional Rune Factory monsters like Buffamoos and Woolies, But you also have ones inspired by Japanese folklore and yokai, so like kappas, tanukis. A lot of them are just recolors, but I think that's not too out of the ordinary for this series or most games in the genre. Once you're done with all of the dungeons, unfortunately, I was hoping that this would change my whole opinion on the difficulty, but there is really not too much endgame content. The endgame dungeon is easier than in past games, easier than in Rune Factory 5, it can be done so quickly. And to be fair, I have to disclaim that there is one single island I have not unlocked yet. I couldn't figure out how, and who knows if that will change everything. I doubt it. But in the event that it does make a big difference, I will leave a pinned comment under this video to let you know. Besides that though, I still have a few things to do. My villages are not all at maximum level yet. I want to decorate them more to my liking. I didn't max out all of my relationships, but I have unlocked most of the seals, which are kind of like the achievements. Fish, treasure chest, frog statues. I'm 80 hours in and I'm pretty close to the 100% mark. One little thing that I miss is how in previous games you could check your shipping bin and see the list of all of the different items you ever shipped. That is not here anymore, so there's no incentive or any way to track if you want to cook every dish, make every piece of equipment. And for anyone who is a completionist and likes that kind of stuff, it is sad. There's also a bulletin board with requests. At first, what you get there is varied, but I don't think there are as many requests as in, let's say, Rune Factory 3 Special. And after a while, it is always just the same repeatable ones requiring you to defeat X monsters or to collect X item from those monsters, so it gets extremely repetitive. Now you're probably thinking that I hate this game. I don't. I love this series so much, I want it to be the best that it can be, and that might make me a bit more critical on things that others would overlook. It's not every year that we get a new Rune Factory game, so when we do, I want it to be something that I can come back to and think about for years to come, discover new secrets and make more progress every time I play. But this one, I think will be more of a one-time thing for me. I might play it for 100 hours and be done with it. For sure, that is still a lot more than most games I play, so I have been enjoying it, don't get me wrong. However, it does have some flaws that I want to point out and that longtime fans of the series might want to know about. Even though it disappointed me in some aspects, it also pleasantly surprised me in other ways. As we all know, relationships are a staple of farming sims, but it is usually at the bottom in my list of priorities. The voice acting, detailed 3D models, and interesting designs in Azuma are one thing, well, three things, but then you get to know these characters and each one has such a fascinating story. Each character has 4 friendship quests. Sometimes you have to do things in these quests, but they're mostly just cutscenes. And I don't want to spoil any of them, but they managed to catch my interest more than they did in previous games, and I found myself looking forward to them instead of skipping through the dialogue. I also appreciate how they don't have much of a romantic undertone. You can do these 4 quests, learn a character's story, and just be friends. But then after that you can declare your love, and that will open a new series of events that will be romantic. So it doesn't feel like you're going through a love story with everybody, and this is actually the first game in the series where same-sex romance was planned during the development, whereas with Rune Factory 5 it was added after the game had already been released in Japan. So it seems like they kept that in mind and made it so you could max out a relationship with a character without triggering a romance you're not necessarily interested in. Before committing to a marriage and children, it is possible to date and go through as many of the romance quests as you'd like, and even after marriage, there is a brand new feature called Rewoven Fates, which allows you to play in an alternate reality where you marry someone else, all while keeping most of your progress. So if that is something you're interested in, you won't have to manage multiple save files like you did in the past. They truly reimagined the relationship mechanics, and even the day-to-day interactions are way more interesting. Instead of simply talking, you can pick from various options that will consume a certain amount of time, and that could be going to the mountain, going to the tea house, and the amount of affinity points you get will depend on that character's hobbies and personality traits. When you do these actions, you will see a short cutscene, sometimes with some special dialogue, and there is a setting, I think it is on by default, making it so it skips the ones you've already experienced, so you don't have to sit through these cutscenes every single time. Gradually, you learn new information about these characters that will show up in their profile, and you can even see a list of their gift preferences that fills up as you try giving them different things. As you get closer to these characters and level up your bond, you gain perks like the ability to have this person join your party, or even to cook together and create special variation of dishes you already know. Throughout my entire time with this game, I really felt compelled to interact with all of the characters daily. The perks and the quests were worth it, and I would love if they decided to keep a similar system for Rune Factory 6. I was not expecting to say that, but the relationships and characters are definitely some of my highlights for this game. Something else that was a welcome change, all of the quality of life features. The fast travel is super convenient, but also items getting transferred to your storage automatically, storage which is almost infinite and easily accessible, so you never have to worry about running out of space for anything. One place where I think they could have done a bit better is with the cooking. You learn so many recipes and there are tabs like quick meals, dishes, snacks, but sometimes it's hard to know in which category something is supposed to be. The list is huge, the order can be a bit messy, and having the option to show them in a grid with pictures would have made a huge difference. Now it's time for the part that worries a lot of people: performance. On the Switch, it looks better and for the most part runs better than Rune Factory 5. That being said, there are moments when textures are blurry, for example, while they're still loading at the beginning of a cutscene. When you teleport to a different area, it can take a while for the villagers to appear, and if your village is busy or you're in the middle of a chaotic fight using the secret treasures, and you have companions doing their special attacks at the same time, it will slow down a bit. Personally, it did not affect my enjoyment of the game, but keep in mind that I was also fine with Rune Factory 5 on the Switch. So I did a whole playthrough on the Switch and then I tried it on PC, and right away I noticed a huge difference. The frame rate is higher, the animations are so fluid, making the movement and combat feel even better, and everything looks so crisp. After that, I played it on the Switch too, and I was pleasantly surprised it is much closer to the PC than the Switch in terms of performance. The frame rate only drops for 1 or 2 seconds when you teleport somewhere, but you don't need to wait for the NPCs to appear anymore and everything runs smoothly. So the best platform to play this game will depend on what your priorities are. Personally, I don't regret having played it a lot on the Switch. It's not flawless, but it's not bad by any means. Then with PC and Switch 2, they're almost the same, so for me going forward, I will be continuing on the Switch 2. Also, for those who don't know, if you are planning to get a Switch 2 in the future, you can purchase the Switch 2 physical edition of the game and it will run just fine on the original Switch. When it comes to the controls, if you're playing with a controller, whether you're on Switch or PC, of course you will be perfectly fine and the buttons can be remapped, which is amazing as it is not something we see very often on consoles. On PC and Switch 2, you can use the mouse to decorate in the overhead view, very useful. I don't know if I will necessarily use that feature though, because for the Switch 2, obviously that requires you to play with the Joy-Cons detached, one in each hand. I rarely play like that. Plus, the regular controls are excellent as they are. On PC only, you can also navigate all of the menus with the mouse and they work pretty well, which has not always been the case with PC versions of past Rune Factory games. For moving and just playing around with mouse and keyboard, it is pretty good. You can tell it was designed to be enjoyed with a controller, but I wouldn't mind playing it like that if it was my only option. Overall, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is impressive. The production quality is the best the series has ever had, with beautiful graphics, an engaging story, and deep characters complemented by great voice acting. It is a spin-off that brings lots of fresh ideas, like the village building that will please anyone who likes decorating, a revamped combat system that feels nice, deeper relationship mechanics, plus the chance to visit a land inspired by traditional Japan. To me, it is this close to being the best Rune Factory game ever. It could be the best one for you depending on which aspect of these games you tend to prioritize, but to me, it falls short due to the lack of a challenge, and how, as a result of that, many of the mechanics are not being used to their full potential. Let me know what you think. Have you played Guardians of Azuma? Do you like it or not? Feel free to watch this tips and tricks video if you're just getting started with the game. Leave a like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.